This video aims to provide an introduction to the solar system. So, the solar system is the planetary system in which we live. And the definition of a planetary system is a gravitationally bound set of non-stellar objects. So in the case of the solar system, it consists of the sun, which bounds the non-stellar objects of the 8 planets, as can be seen down here: Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars, all the way to Neptune, as well as other non-stellar bodies, such as moons of Jupiter, our moon, asteroids in the asteroid belt, comets in the Kuiper belt, and even dwarf planets like Pluto. So in this video, we're going to explore chiefly the 8 planets of the solar system. So without further ado, let's begin with Mercury, the closest planet to the Sun. So Mercury. Mercury is the first planet, or closest planet to the Sun. So it's the first planet. What's also important to note is that it's a terrestrial planet, so a rocky planet. And one interesting fact about it is that it's the smallest planet in the solar system. So in this case, the first planet is also the smallest planet. Interestingly, some moons are in fact in the solar system larger than Mercury. However, Mercury is more massive than any moon in the solar system. That's quite interesting. Mercury was named after Mercurius, or Mercury, which was the god of commerce, the messenger of the gods. And since it's so close to the sun, it's a very hot planet. So now over here we have Venus. And Venus is the second planet from the sun. And one really interesting fact about Venus is that it's the hottest planet in the solar system. So even though it's further away than Mercury, because of its dense atmosphere, the terrestrial planet exhibits a runaway greenhouse effect, which heats the planet kind of like a blanket. What's interesting is that from Earth, it's the third brightest object you can see in the sky after the sun and the moon. And it's known as the morning star, even though it's actually a planet. So now we're moving on to Earth, the planet on which we all live and on which this video is being shot. Or recorded. So Earth is the third planet from the Sun. It's also a terrestrial planet, so a rocky planet. And it's the only known astronomical body to harbor life. So it's the only known body in space that is known to have life. Now, this does not mean that it's the only body in the universe which has life. In fact, the odds of that are quite unlikely, given just the vast amounts of stars and planets in our galaxy alone, let alone the universe. However, it's the only astronomical body on which we know for certain that life exists. So now we're moving on to Mars, the red planet. So Mars is, well, the fourth planet from the Sun. So of course, terrestrial planet or a rocky planet. And one interesting fact on it is that it may have life on it as we speak. Or have had life in the past. In fact, what's interesting about Mars is that we know Mars used to have oceans on it, oceans of water. However, they've now disappeared. So it's possible that life still exists on Mars, likely subterranean single-celled or single-celled-like type of life. And even if that doesn't exist today, it is quite possible that it did exist in the past. So now we're on to Jupiter, the largest and most massive of the planets, the king of the planets, if you will. So Jupiter is the fifth planet from the Sun. What's interesting about Jupiter is that it's in fact not a rocky planet. It's a gas giant. And like I said, the largest and most massive planet in the solar system. In fact, Jupiter is so massive that if you put the masses of every single other planet in the solar system combined, Jupiter's mass would still be over 2.5 times greater than the combination of all the rest of the planet's masses. So it's truly a huge planet. And this is just a picture of one of Jupiter's poles. Some interesting patterns you can see. And here's the Great Red Spot, which is a huge storm which continues to rage on the gas giant. The next planet here is Saturn. So Saturn is the sixth planet from the Sun. It is, again, a gas giant. And it has an enormous ring system or an impressive ring system. So yeah, it's the planet with the most obvious ring system. Jupiter also has rings, however, they're much less impressive, harder to see. While with Saturn, they're quite obvious. What's interesting to note is that in this image, you can see a dot down here in the bottom left, and that's one of Saturn's moons. In fact, I believe it's its largest moon, Titan, which also has like a dense atmosphere. So one thing I didn't mention about Jupiter, it has tons of moons, and so does Saturn, some of which may harbor life as well, at least in the case of Saturn. So the next planet here is Uranus. Uranus is quite far away from the Sun. It's in fact the 7th planet from the Sun. What's interesting about Uranus is that the ancient Greeks did not know of it as a planet. However, it is possible to see Uranus on a clear night from Earth. So it's possible that the Greeks mistook it for a star. It's an ice giant, so it's made of gases, but also water ice. It's very far away from the Sun. And what's interesting about Uranus is that its axis of rotation is sideways. So in fact, instead of rotating kind of like this, like Earth does, not quite, because Earth's axis is tilted, hence the seasons. Uranus's axis is something kind of like this. So it's tilted sideways compared to Earth's, which is pretty cool. And the final planet in the solar system is Neptune. So hence, it's the 8th planet from the Sun. It is also an ice giant. And what's really interesting about Neptune was that it was found by mathematical prediction. Now this means that people predicted the existence of Neptune and the location of where it was before they actually spotted the planet in a telescope. And they were able to deduce the location of Neptune based on changes or unexpected changes in Uranus's orbit. So yeah, this planet was mathematically predicted. And I think that since this is the last planet, this brings an end to this video on the solar system. I hope you found it useful, and thank you for watching.